All right, so we're going to jump into our HTML, and I'm just going to change the title to Progress Steps. And in the body here, we're going to want a container around everything. And then inside that container, we'll have a progress dash container. And then inside there, we'll have a class of progress. I'm also going to give it an ID of progress. Okay, and nothing is going to go inside here. We're just going to use it for styling and for creating the line. Now we do have the circles with the numbers inside, so inside progress container, but after the progress div, we're going to have a class of circle, and depending on which one is active, it'll have different styling. So the first one here, I'm going to just manually put a class of active on, and this is going to be 1, and then we'll copy that down 3 more times, and we don't want active on these other ones. And this one will be step 2, and this one will be 3, and this one will be 4. And then let's go outside of the progress container, still within the regular container, and have our buttons. So this is going to be class. Let's give it a class of btn, and I'm going to give it an ID of prev for preview. And I'm also going to make this disabled by default because we're going to start at 1 and we can't go previous if we're at 1. And let's just say prev in here, copy this down, and then this will be the next. So we'll get rid of disabled here and change the ID to next. Okay, so we'll save that. It's going to look absolutely horrible for now, but let's jump into our CSS and start to shaping this up. So I'm going to use the Mully font. So I'm going to just get rid of this here and say CSS question mark family equals MULI. And we'll add that here. And then I'm going to add a background color to the body. So background color is going to be F6F7FB. And let's see, display flex, we can get rid of the column, justify, align, center. Okay, that stuff is all good. So for the container, we're just going to text align to the center. And then for the progress container, let's display that as a flex box. Okay, so it's gonna, remember the progress container wraps around this right here, not the buttons. So put that into a flex row. Now as far as the remaining content, let's do justify content. So I want to take the remaining space here and put it in between the elements. So we're gonna use space between. Okay, so that'll separate them out. We're gonna position relative so that we can position other things inside of it, absolute. Let's add a margin bottom of 30 pixels, and let's set a max width of 100% and set a width of 350 pixels. And you could change this, of course, if you wanted to. So now we want to start to work on the line that's going to go through the middle of these, and then we'll work on the circles. Now the way we're going to do this is the progress, this div right here is going to be the blue line that changes, that has a transition. When we click next, it'll go to 2, 3, so it'll go to a certain percentage. And then we're going to have a faint gray line behind it, which is basically represents the empty line, and that's going to be on the before pseudo selector of the progress container. All right, so let's go ahead and create the blue line first. So that's going to be on progress. All right, we're going to set a background color. Let's set it to hexadecimal 3498 dB. And we want to position this to be absolute within the progress container, which is positioned relative. And as far as where I want to put it, I want it in the middle, vertically. So let's do 50% from the top, and let's do from the left 0. And it'll have a height of 4 pixels. Now the width is going to start out as 0% because we're going to start at the beginning here, but just for now so we can actually see it, I'll set it to 50%. Now this isn't directly in the middle. The top of the line is in the middle, but we want the middle to be in the middle. So we want to add a transform and set translate on the y-axis, which is the vertical axis. Want to move it up 50%. Okay, so now it should be right in the middle. And let's also set a z-index because we want to make sure this is behind the circles, behind the numbers. So we'll set that to -1. And then this is going to have a transition on it because when we do click previous or next, we want the line to transition in a certain duration, not just flick to the next one. So we'll just do 0.4 seconds with an ease effect. All right, so that should be good as far as that goes. Now I'm going to just change this to 0% width because that's going to be the starting point, and I'm going to copy this and go right above it, and this is going to be the progress container, and we're going to use the before selector, and then this is going to be the faint gray line behind it. So I'm going to use E0 3 times as a background. These coordinates are going to, or the positioning is going to be the same. The height's the same. The width, however, is going to be 100, because, not 1,000, 100, because it's going to represent the empty line. And we don't need a transition because it's not actually going to do anything. It's just the line behind it. So I saved it, but the reason we're not seeing anything is when you use before or after, you have to add content, which I often forget, and just set it to an empty string. So now we can see the line behind it. Now if I were to set this to 50%, you can see now it fills in that gray line. But we're going to keep that at 0 for now, and let's style the circles. Okay, so all we have left now is the circles and the buttons. So we'll say circle, and for this, let's give it a background color of white, and we're going to do a color of 999, so just like a gray color. And let's see, let's do a border radius. Whoops. Border radius, we want this to be rounded, so 50%. And let's set a height of 30 pixels, and we'll also set a width of 30 pixels. All right, now we want to center the numbers in the circle, so one of the easiest ways to do that is just display flex, align items center, and justify content center. So those will put the numbers right in the middle. Let's see, let's give them a border. So border will be 3 pixels solid, and let's do a light gray, so E0, basically the same color as the line. And yeah, I think that should do it. We do want to add a transition. The border is going to change depending on where the blue line is. If it's up to 2, then that border should be 2, and that's going to pertain to the active class, which we'll style in a second. But for the transition, let's do 0.4 seconds ease, and then let's do the active class. So circle, if it has the active class on it, then let's make the border color, and let's set that to 349 8 dB, and that should be the same as, where is it, right here, 349 8 dB. We could actually use some custom properties here. So to define custom properties, which are basically just variables, we need a scope. So I'm going to put it on the root scope, and let's set the, we'll say line fill, and we'll set that, actually it's the line and we'll say line border fill, and let's grab this and put that in there, and then let's say line border empty, and that's going to be that E0. Okay, so now we can just replace this with var dash dash line border empty. And I'm just going to copy that. And then this one here, this is going to be, oops, this is going to be fill. So line border fill. And this one here will be line border empty. That's the border of the circle. And then if it's active, it'll be fill. So that way you can just, if you want to change the colors, you can do that easily up above. All right, so now for the buttons, those are the last thing we want to style. So btn. And this is actually going to have the same background color as the fill. So we'll go ahead and just add that here as well. Okay, and let's set the color to white. And let's remove the button border. Let's set the border radius to 6 pixels and set the cursor to a pointer. Let's set the, make sure we inherit the font family. So inherit, good. Let's add some padding. So we'll do 8 pixels top and bottom, 30 pixels left and right, and add a little bit of margin. So 5 pixel margin. And that should do it. Actually, let's make the font size 14 pixels. Okay, and then we'll just have a little scaling effect on the active. So like when we click it. So btn : active, and we'll add a transform. We want to scale it down a little, so from 1 we'll go to 0.98. That way when we click, we have, you know, that little effect. This is disabled, remember, the previous, so I can't click that, but that has that little effect. Let's also get rid of the outline. So btn, when it's in its focus state, we want to set the outline to 0 or none. All right, let's make it, if it's disabled, if the button is disabled, we'll make it gray. So let's say button : disabled, because we can target that. And we're going to set the background color to var, and let's use the empty. And I'm also going to set the cursor from a pointer, set it to not allowed. So that way, if it's disabled, we can't, you know, it gives us that not allowed cursor, can't click it. So that does it for the styling. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and add the JavaScript so we can click next, have this move to the second one, third one, have it move back with previous, and so on. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.